Hello.
Hi, Audrey. Good to see ya. Well, to start, we usually see if there's anything that people want to discuss. We did just come out of a discussion, but it doesn't have to be related. It can be something to do with something you're struggling with or something you're inspired by. Sometimes we get overly fixated on the struggles and we forget to share our inspirations or some wisdom that we received during the week. Really, the living part of Gnosis is that we have an experience, we learn something universal that we can then share with other people based on that experience and that learning. So, as we do the work, we will start to have certain reflections, certain little little bites of something that we've extracted from the events of our lives. And when we regularly meet, then we do have the chance to share that with others.
I, I mm, I feel like I'm starting to sense how there is like this big ego that I have to work on, and then I had like a meditation experience where I feel like I try to work on it like with some life, and it was like very nice at the moment, but then you go to sleep and like one of the most fearful experiences of like whole life. And
The astral, you mean?
yes, and I don't understand this, and I feel like this probably has blocked me in many other times because like the first I was interested into gnosis because of astral projection, like couple cool experiences, and then just bunch of darkness. And I don't know how much that maybe impacted me psychologically and created like some blockages on that wheel of curiosity and knowing more. And this happened like I do have this wheel of awakening in the astral, but most of the times it's really frightening, and I feel like I still do the work in the physical, and now like in the past I really frightened up. Like it really made me terrified. But last couple times that I have like awful experiences, I've been able to just like be really in peace in it. Like it's strange, um, but it's still some mystery. Like I don't really understand it, and I don't feel like there's much happening. And yeah, I don't know. That's something that confuses me a bit.
I think with the ego sometimes, especially when we're coming closer to seeing it and separating it from the essence, it can fight back more. Um, it could get more, you know, aggressive, right? Because it wants to put us back to sleep and not, well, save itself, right? Because in a sense, these entities, we create them and they're living, right? And so it doesn't want to disappear and have its like its own sentience erased, right? So in that sense, it's pretty normal for something like that to happen, especially if you were having some type of profound meditation. Maybe you got really close to comprehension and you're starting to see this ego. Maybe you even comprehended it and you just forgot to apply the fire or to dissolve it, something like that. But either way, it knows that you're onto it. So what does it do? It attacks you in the astral because the egos, depending on where they are either in the fourth dimension or they can be in the fifth dimension. And if it's related to, say, emotions, then it's in the emotional plane. So it attacks you in the emotional plane, which is where we go when we sleep, majority of the time. Maybe sometimes it's the mental plane. I would it's how you want to perceive the situation, right? In a sense, we could perceive it as, oh, I'm doing a good job, I'm onto it, or we could be scared of it, right? But if we know it's an ego, there's nothing to be scared of, and we could look at it in a sense as we're making progress. So it's showing itself to us in this way to try to deter us from the path of eventually eliminating it.
If we meditate to comprehend and dissolve it in the physical, like during our physical meditations, then watch and see what happens. Because we'll only be shown something that we need to see. And sometimes the dream world can be very strange. Like if we see our infraconscious, we can see murder, violence, rape, all these things, and think, oh my gosh, that is inside my subconscious. We feel so good and pious in the physical, but it's nothing to be ashamed of or to judge. You just see it and say, okay, now I've seen this, so let me meditate on it. Let me seek to comprehend it and dissolve it. And the more we do that in our meditation, then what we see in the dream world will change. But it can be very confronting, especially when we're being taken into the deep parts of the mind, things that we didn't know existed. I remember when we first started the study group, there was one person in the group who shared that they had an astral, I think it was their first astral experience, and they were brought into this factory where it was a lot of carnage and gore, and it was very intense, and these bodies were being cut up, and they were so freaked out, because when you go into the astral, it's very visceral, right? It's very vivid. Sometimes it feels more real than the physical. And they got so freaked out that they never wanted to astral project again. And we never saw that person again. They never said anything. But they were being fast-tracked. They were being shown, okay, you can do it. Here you go. Here's what's in your subconscious. And they said, no, it's too much. I can't. But that's more of a gift than just seeing rainbows and ponies, because we know that's not real, right? We want to get to the heart of the matter. We want to see the truth, and we want to be able to work with what is really there. So it's a good thing to be seeing these deeper parts of the psyche, because we all have them. Anyone else with anything to ask or bring into the forum?
I feel like something I'm just kind of reflecting, something that's been really hard for me lately is I feel like I've always been dealing with this really strong ego of like pride, but inverse pride. And it's interesting because I've noticed that, throughout life, it's kind of like manifested itself in certain situations. And I don't I guess I'm speaking because I'm just curious if anybody else has any like shared experiences like this or any insight. But what I noticed specifically last two study groups that we were in is like I was super, super in my ego and super identified with inverse pride and dealing with this like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't come to the study group because I'm just not good enough and everybody else is like accelerating, and this really strange kind of like isolation or detachment from the group. And it's so interesting because it's like I know that intellectually it's ego, and I can understand it to an as, or I can understand an element to it because I'm like, oh, I can track it back down to certain events that have probably, created and built this ego up, and probably past lifetimes have also created and built up this ego. But it's just so interesting. And and it's funny because I'm not really, for some reason, dealing with it today. It was just really randomly, like last 2 weeks, where I just felt so emotional and so detached and like, oh, like, and then all these dumb voices of like, what if I bring others down because I'm not focused or I'm not meditating properly, or like, I don't know, it's really strange. So I don't know if like, I mean, clearly it's an ego and it's a beautiful experience to be going through and to keep pushing through it and coming together and kind of like ignoring it, or not ignoring it, but just not, I guess, identifying with it. But it's just crazy how you can still observe an ego and be completely understanding towards it, but still completely feel it. And so it's just, and I don't know if there's like maybe some resistance internally where it's like trying to kick me off of the path and being tricky like that. Or so I don't know if other people have had any situations like that, or maybe it is just my own personal situation because it is unique to all of us. So yeah.
Yeah, inverse pride, and or pride in general, right? Because whenever we are still identified with our false sense of self, we go back between the two poles. It may look different for everyone, right? But that's like pretty much the big one that we can't get away from, right? Whether it's, we feel good or we feel lesser than. Sometimes we're not even comparing ourselves to others. We're just comparing ourselves to our own standards, you know, and it's part of the process, right? Because the false sense of self in totality, or person, is the thing we need to break away from, and not to get rid of necessarily right away, because that'd be impossible, but we need to detach from it, and the only way we can is to constantly keep observing when it comes up, and that's the work at the beginning. Because if to detach from our entire false sense of self, then we have to see all of the perspectives of when it comes up and it's triggered. That doesn't mean that it even goes away, but just that we know that always, like how you're saying, like in this situation, right? You see that trigger, for example. So it's actually not that one that's keeping you attached to it. But I mean, that's why it's still hard, because it's still there. So we need to find, to fully detach from it is to find all of the things that are attaching us to it. And then in that sense, then we start to create that space, and the space becomes greater and greater. Not that, it's not like I said, it doesn't go away, but the space becomes greater and greater once we first create that initial space. But usually it's what we're missing still that's keeping us attached, rather than where we observe it. And that's why the work is to know ourselves, to know thyself, right? Because we need to know all of the places where we're getting entombed in that. And there's always a flavor to it, which is why no one really can help us with it, because we know what makes us tick, we know what makes ourselves tick, we know what our traumas are, we know what our past history is, we know what our likes are, we know our dislikes. And it's like all of those things have to be detached from. But it's not like, whether it happens in a spontaneous moment, or it just over a large period of time of us doing a lot of consistent work on it. As long as we remember that that is what we need to do, then it's okay. And when we observe things, and it get identified for a second, it's not a big deal. Uh, as long as we don't fall asleep in it, we just move past it. You know, meditate on it, see where to try to, because we can still remove those triggers, at least. Yeah. But I would say the biggest thing is trying to find the what's left over that still attaches us to it in the first place. Um, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. I feel for you, Caitlin. That test is a tricky one, and it seems similar to Matthias, right? You reach a certain point, and the ego knows that you're onto it, so it starts to shift and make more trouble than you ever had. And at that point when it starts fighting back because it realizes what you're doing, you've killed some small egos and you're going and going, you're killing these smaller ones, and it goes, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? You're chopping off all my arms here. Blah! It suddenly tries to get you, and it starts doing things that you never experienced before. One, you're far more observant than you used to be a few years ago, so you see it all very intensely. But two, it never used to do that because now it's fighting for its life, right? And it hears all of us talking about this, so it knows. It's listening too. And if it's inverse pride or that discouragement or those feelings of doubt or like, oh, I'm so lost, that's one of its really big weapons. You can read about it in the beginning of The Revolution of the Dialectic. Samuel Aumveor says it's one of the key tricks that prevents the initiate from advancing in the psychological work. So he says straight up, this is something that it tries to do. And we read it like intellectual information, but then when you experience it, you go, wow, yes, I can feel it. It's trying to do that thing, right? It's trying to bring me down.
It's the self-doubt and the waffling. It's almost certainly that's how it attacks us back when we start to actually see it. Because what it's trying to do is to have us doubt ourselves, and then it's going to try to hide in. That's where the mystical pride comes in usually. It's like, oh, you might be, wrong, you'd be off. And then it tries to slip in something else that you can become identified with it. Usually like some type of method or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, so when that happens, we just have to realize that it's upping the ante. So it is going to feel more intense. And we don't want to go head to head with it. We want to be really spacious, not only in those moments, but when we are retrospecting back on it. And it's just like a moment where we've had some big emotions, right? And when we go back into that and we meditate, it's tricky to open into it. It's like, no, there's so much tension here. And we have to go into it and expand inside of it and surrender inside of it. And it will all unravel, but we have to feel through all of it and all of its intensity. And that's hard, we might cry or become upset and all these things. But as long as we stay in that observer mode and don't resist it, but just expand inside of it, then we'll get to the bottom of it.
I think it's also important, like what we said to Matthias, it's the perspective that we hold about it, right? It is one of the most intense times, and it is when the ego is maybe attacking back the hardest, or at least the hardest while we're in a state where it affects us a lot, right? Because in theory, right, as we go further along the path, actually the trials get harder. But if we're at a different state of balance, it just doesn't feel as painful and suffering and as intense with the suffering. But if we look at it in the sense of this is progress actually, and I need to just push through it rather than, oh, it's terrible, I'm never going to be able to do it. Just that simply having that type of perspective and that mentality and that shift that I must be doing something right instead of I must be doing something wrong can be the difference of pushing through that trial and reaching the goal, or falling off and back into some type of identification. And it's just literally the mentality that we go through. It's either positive or negative, but that in that case, because the ego is attacking us with negativity. We're looking for the balance. The closer we get to the balance, it throws more negativity at us. We must face it with positivity, otherwise we'll fall into the negativity and get lost. And similar, Sarah said something as well in the chat. Said, I woke up from a dream this morning and it was just like you described.
That was about the previous.
Yeah, very confronting and remembering. It's still kind of sleep state. I found myself looking at it and asking why it's there. Just in a state of observing. It was okay because there was no type of judgment to myself, the moment for seeing the ugly part. And yes, that's exactly kind of what I was trying to get at, in that our perspective on it and how we approach these things will help us get through it in the moment. Because if we fall into the judgment, if we fall into the defeatist attitude, then that will pull us in another direction.
We can also see how absurd the things it says are. I know in the moment it seems so real and we believe it even as we're trying to observe and disidentify, but it will just say things like, "Oh, I'm not cut out for the path. I can't do this." And it has these classic, really stupid lines like, "I never meditated properly all these years,"
Are you
or
sure you're hearing from your being?
I never had a comprehension ever. I never dissolved an ego ever. So if this sounds familiar, those are its tricks, right? I never heard from my being. Different, like everyone else is having all these experiences. I can't remember my dreams well. I can't interpret them well. I don't have good intuition. All of my chakras are broken. They're never going to awaken. Yeah, guess what? This is universal. It has the same tricks. So it says all these things. And even if you say you've been meditating and you feel like you felt your chakras, it's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Yeah, Ruth is right. It is the same tricks, and to some extent, we can see it even early on when we look at a regular person, right, who's not doing the work, and at least the egos that we comprehend about ourselves, we can see those programs within them. But to an extent, as you go up, you realize that all of these other programs are within us, even while we're doing the spiritual work as well. But once you will comprehend it, then you'll see it, and then it is the same in all of us. Maybe like because of our personality, it manifests a little differently, but the actual like program that's running in our head and that's like speaking to us is the same thing. And that's why you eventually are able to help others as you grow, because like, oh, I was there, you know. I that the situation is different, but that ego is that ego. Mm. Matthias?
Um, yeah, I think that somehow on the same thing. Um, like just now and lately, it's been for me mostly like just a sensation, like very physical, like very energetic, and yeah, it is strange because somehow exactly the mind can analyze and understand things and try to disidentify, and but what I feel that makes me struggle the most lately is that it is easier to disidentify from thoughts than it is to disidentify from things that we're feeling like very intensely in the body, and that it is like there, like at every moment. And yeah, it is curious you say this about this happening in this course and these classes, and that we are here like in a sort of classroom, because that makes me think or remember or feel a lot like school, and this space of learning and sharing where we were like children, and and we had to like develop so many defense systems to somehow be right, and what I feel is that this is like rooted very very intensely within, and yeah, like you say these things about this identification and stepping aside, but it just feels quite impossible. It is just like being there, sensing it, observing, but yeah, nothing seems to happen. And lately I've been just like kind of trusting on this thing of just trying to sense love and to talk to it and to try to take care of it and be some kind of soothing, because it's like the only thing I've been like kind of feel able to do. But yeah, I'm not sure how exactly the same or not the same may be, but it's kind of how I observe these things.
Hmm. Divine love is a great energy that can allow us to hold the spaciousness we need to do the work. And so many people have not yet realized its power and its potential. I think Master Samael didn't really write too much about it, but like a while ago we were in a voice chat with Kyle, and he said, "Oh, one time I discovered that if I shone divine love on my ego, it dissolved. That's not written anywhere, but look, this happened." And then synchronistically, somebody else in a different chat or forum said the same thing. "Oh, I discovered," like that's gnosis. It's what you discover, right? I discovered I can hold divine love with the ego and it starts to melt. And this is actually It's actually a Buddhist practice, and they've known about it for a long time.
Well,
So,
I think the master doesn't talk about it. He just uses different language. To shine divine love is comprehension. It's the fire, right? It's the divine mother Kundalini. Divine love is the creative force, and in one of its aspects. So the master wanted to focus on saying, divine mother and the fire and the fiery serpent, because that's the terminology that he likes. But in the same, they're one and the same thing. So
you just don't realize what that is.
well, he kind of does say that too, because he, in a sense, right, he says to work at alchemy, you have to create love. So, I mean, he doesn't say it in a direct way, but he does actually say, that fire is created from love, not from, just anything.
Yeah, experientially though, people
Yeah.
don't realize. So that's great. You're working with the Divine Mother.
Thank you guys. That was really insightful. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We'll go into the meditation now. Taking some deep breaths. Letting go of all thoughts, all imbalances, any imbalanced emotions, everything that ails or discourages. We let all these go on the out-breath. Now we return the breath to our natural rhythm, noticing the breath maybe at the nostrils as it flows in and out. Perhaps noticing the rise and fall of the abdomen. We begin by calling up this energy of love and compassion, knowing we are with our Divine Mother, that perfect love, and allowing this resonance to be within our awareness, within our field, this light that encompasses us, that stabilizes, balances, and conciliates. It radiates from the heart. It covers the physical body and the higher bodies. And now we are realigned, equilibrated. We open the practice with the mantra Aum, whether out loud or internally, mentally, 3 times. We travel the awareness through the body, starting with the crown. Perhaps we notice some pulsing in this part of our being where we receive information, understanding. Becoming aware of the face. Perhaps our eyes have been dry or tired from too much technology. we turn up the awareness. We sense this part of the body and we allow these organs to relax, letting go of any tension in the jaw, becoming aware of the back of the head. It's a part of the body we ignore, we don't give much attention to. We just hold the awareness here until we notice this part of the body. Maybe there are some very mild tingles. Maybe we can even feel or sense the hair at the back of our head. Moving the awareness to the neck, in the front of the neck. Maybe there has been some tightness along the glands, along the bottom of the jawline. We let all this tension go. With the lower front of the neck, any desire, any clinging to events, to outcomes. Sometimes this tension is held here. We notice it and we don't feel any reaction to this. We don't judge it. We just be with it. Just allow it. And now we feel the back of the neck, allowing more relaxation into this part of the body. As the body begins to relax deeper, we stay with the intention to remain relaxed yet aware, alert, so we do not fall asleep. Becoming aware of the tops of the shoulders. Maybe there is tension here, clinging. We relax the muscles deeper and deeper. We don't judge. We just allow. And now we allow the shoulders to drop deeper and deeper, and to relax just a little further, just a little more. Letting go of all clinging, egoic activity, striving, having an objective, having a goal, trying to do something. With every out-breath, we let all of this go. Noticing the upper right arm. Maybe it is a cloud of sensory information, some tingling, the pulsing of life. Maybe we can even feel the blood pumping through our blood vessels, or we sense the muscles in this part of the body. Moving the awareness to the right forearm. There are nerves here connected to the activities of the hand. Maybe we've been on our phones or computers too much. We allow more relaxation into this part of the body. Noticing the right hand, any tingles in the tips of the fingers. There is a lot of energy here. Just allowing the right hand to relax. Now the upper back, so as not to be mechanical. We move to an unexpected part of the body. Again, dropping the shoulders and the upper back deeper and deeper. We sink into relaxation and we remain aware. The upper chest, letting go of any tension here, any tightness that connects to the shoulders. We remain seated upright, but we allow the shoulders to drop. The spine is straight and the shoulders are hanging like a shirt on a coat hanger, lightly hanging in their place. We bring the awareness to the upper left arm. Maybe it doesn't feel the same as the right arm. We just take the time to observe, to be here in this moment, sensing, relaxing. Now the lower left arm. Any nerves and tendons connected to the hand and its activities. Now the left hand. Sometimes we might even feel the astral hand, the vital body, some tingling around where the hand should be, maybe above the top of the hand, maybe some tingling at the tips of the fingers. We come to the middle back. If we've never tried this before, at first, maybe we sense nothing. Or maybe our awareness has expanded. We sense the vital energy. We sense tingles, pulsing. Or maybe our awareness is very refined and we sense the contact of our clothing upon our skin. Bringing the awareness to the front of the body, the middle of the chest, between the upper chest and the abdomen. Noticing the pointy ends of the rib cage, the rib cages, both physically, perhaps vital and astral. Bringing the observer to the abdomen, allowing it to fully relax, no tension, no need to hold in the belly, to pretend or to keep any kind of appearance. Let the belly drop into full expansion, in full relaxation. Now the lower back. Perhaps there is warmth. Perhaps we sense activity in the location of the kidneys. Perhaps we sense any energy along the spine and the coccyx. Becoming aware of the location of the body that contacts the place where we are seated. Maybe we sense the skin. Maybe we sense the tendons, any tightness in the hips. We don't fight or resist it. We just remain aware. And now the right thigh. Maybe even the thigh bone or the thigh skin above and below. The sense of the material of any clothing or blanket or sheet or whatever is contacting the skin. The right knee. The right shin. If we're seated in the lotus position, maybe we feel where the right shin contacts the left ankle. We become aware of the right calf. Any tingles or energy in the muscles, in the skin. The right foot, toes. Now sensing the left thigh. The skin of the thigh, or perhaps the muscles, the thigh bone, the tendons and joints. The left shin, left calf muscle, the left foot and left toes. The body is now completely relaxed, and we no longer need to pay attention to it. It is fully rested. And perhaps we notice our awareness does not need to be associated with the body. So we move into that awareness. We no longer look for the body. We allow it to continue to relax and drop away. And we just stay with the awareness. And on every out-breath, we allow the body to drop away further and further. If we again become aware of any part of the body, we allow it to sink away into a deeper state of relaxation. And we stay present with this awareness, this silence. And now in this silence, we take some time to be again with the energy of divine love, loving kindness, compassion, just as pure energy. We connect internally with our higher and more profound aspect. And we take some time, some moments of internal communion in silence, communing, praying to the being, but without words. Now in this quiet place, this deep and quiet space, we bring up some issue, some problem, some question or some ego, some challenge, only to hold it quietly in this space where there's no judgment. There is only love and observation. And we hold this item, this scene or emotion, attachment, this story, whatever it is that we need to sit with. And we gently sit with it, just observing, without trying to do anything, without trying to achieve or solve it, or expecting anything in particular, just observing, just noticing, and continuously holding this energy of love, presence, compassion. find ourselves getting lost, we come back to the practice. If the love and compassion starts to dim, we turn it up, we recontact it, we brighten that love, and again we continue to sit with these seeming conundrums. Perhaps there are multiple scenes when these issues were arising, or perhaps there is one scene in particular that will help us to contact this part of the soul where it is stuck. We may find that eventually we reach a place of peace regarding these situations. We understand there is no need to solve a problem or to have an objective, to fulfill a desire. Perhaps we discover that many of the things we chased after are not required. Many of the things we feared were not real. Perhaps we discovered that the one who reacted no longer needs to continue in that pattern of reaction. That we are not truly offended, angry, fearful, or any of these illusions, these stories. We are in such peace that we are ready to let go of all of these things, to give them up into the fire of the Divine Mother, to let that consuming divine love return us into full, equilibrated balance, internal harmony, unity. We are ready to have that part of our soul, our essence, be returned to us in the form of virtue, confidence in our being, and inner peace. We are not our fears. We are not our desires. We are not any ambition or goal. And so inwardly, quietly, we beseech, oh my inner consuming fire, my inner light, my inner radiance, inner perfection, my inner divinity, my Divine Mother, oh perfect love, come and consume these parts that I wish to let go of. Transform them like the phoenix rises from the ashes. Take all of this tightness, this clinging, and burn it up until it becomes raw, pure energy in its potentiality to be returned to my true core and to be settled within my heart as virtue, as stability, as very strong, unshakable divine will that no man nor challenging situation could ever conquer. Return these divided parts into full restoration. Now we visualize a blazing fire. The blazing fire covers our physical, vital, astral, mental bodies. It covers the space in which we sit. We visualize it burning brightly. Perhaps we hear it crackling. Perhaps we feel some heat as this fire burns in the higher dimensions and the results come down to the physical. Perhaps we see these scenes where we were caught in the illusion, and we also see the fire burning within all of these scenes, changing the past within the eternal now, and finding this consuming fire, restoring, rejuvenating, and renewing our soul. We sit with this fire, and internally we say the mantra, cream, for a figurative symbolic number of death, 13 times, saying it quietly, internally. We continue to visualize the fire burning up all of these illusions. We now settle with these restored and returned energies, perhaps visualizing or sensing them as a strong light containing the virtues and values of our soul, perhaps some higher aspect we wish to incarnate, whether it is strength, force, courage, stability, discernment, wisdom, love, spaciousness, the aspect that we need to facilitate our continued awakening. We settle this light, this energy in the heart. We seal it in our own way. We seal our connection to our being, our higher self, to whom we remain true. And gradually, when we are ready, we return from the practice. So when we're ready, we can come back. Just a quick check. Did anyone hear the radiator here? Because we have the sound suppression on, but I thought I would check because it's pretty loud.
No, the sound person of yours, mine has.
Yes.
Yes, we heard it.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I thought it would
for
be.
me, I have the thing on. I have the noise suppression off. It was on your computer, the noise suppression on.
Oh.
In my Zoom, it's on for the meditations.
Radiator meditation.
Yeah, that's what we've been dealing with pretty much for a lot of the winter. Sorry.
It's a New York thing.
No, it's an old building thing, but I
Well,
guess.
we had other. Yeah, do the meditation again, but without sound. Yes. Next week, it's tricky because if we want to hear the mantras, then we have to turn the noise suppression off, but we could crackling fire. Yes, it was the fire. We could, rain on a rooftop. That's a good one. We could do it, but then the mantrams will cut off. So we can't have everything. If you guys don't mind, because we know the mantrams, we could try it next week with the noise suppression on.
Or maybe you just
Everyone
won't be
knows those
making
mantras.
noise next week, 'cause, you know, don't manifest that I'll be making noise next
Okay,
week.
let's see. But then we'll only find out during the meditation. So anyway, it's something that we should do often, but it's definitely more effective when we go deep. So yes. Okay. All right, so we're going to start with a quote from Master Lakshmi about biplicity. And this is a theme we've been talking about, actually. Finding our inner unity, our inner authority. So he says, duplicity is the element that allows us to select the good from the bad, extracting the spiritual content of the events that are presented to us in life. This arcanum shows us the necessity of working with synthesis, and we do not incline at any moment for thesis or antithesis. So we'll take a look at the symbols here. We start with Isis at the top of the plate, and we see that she's dipping down towards the head of the initiate. So we see that she is active in multiple planes, kind of like this meditation that we did. It said that the woman is supposed to be touching Isis, but I guess for artistic reasons, her head is not physically touching, but it's supposed to be touching. So working with the Divine Mother to come out of this biplicity, our internal division. And on the head of this initiate, she has the papyrus flower, which is a symbol of joy, a symbol of both birth and death, which obviously pertains to the work on the ego. It's a symbol of regeneration. So what are we doing? If we're working with the Divine Mother, then that is going to allow us to come out of our internal division. And the initiate has 2 tools in her hand. That thing that looks like a funny arrow, that's again the artistic license. It's supposed to be a fan. So she has a fan, and she has an ostrich feather. And the fan, we talked about this before, there's a saying that says the breath of life is with you. And it means the receiving of life, right? If we work with the fan, or the symbol of the fan, it means that the work that we are doing is leading to more life. Oh yeah, noise suppression, that would be good.
Just yours doesn't have it, right?
Okay, we're gonna switch mics. Hang on,
Just-
ready? Okay, is it? Hold up, because I need to turn off mute on my computer so that we still have sound. Okay.
It'll be fine now.
Yes, it should be fine now. So is it gone? It's not
No,
gone?
Wait, just wait. Check.
Oh.
You don't even have a thing for it.
I don't even have a setting
This is
for it. That's so funny. It's like when a parent has a child and they can't hear the child scream or whine anymore. And other people say, "Oh, your kid is being so loud." And the parent goes, "Huh? What are you talking about?" Because they learned to tune it out. So that's how our radiator is. Yeah. Okay, now?
Do you still hear it?
Yay. Okay, that's the noise suppression.
Okay.
So yeah, imagine the people that come here for the talks. It's just all the time. We meditate. Actually, when we meditate, not only do we have the sound of the radiator, but also on the street, sometimes if people are here on a Thursday night, a Saturday night, there's partiers outside and they are like singing. We had protesters, but they were singing joyously the other week.
That was really funny. We were doing a meditation and there were people outside on the street. They were singing about freedom, and Marissa's using the singing bowl. And then she's like, "Ah, it's the Black Lodge. They sent people outside to like, call this." I was like, it was actually kind of nice because they're singing about freedom, and then they like kind of like went together into
It just
the
shows
bowls.
this perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, freedom.
So he's meditating to it. He's like, oh, it's sent by divinity.
We're
They're singing.
ascending to nirvana, to the freedom of the absolute.
Then we all started listening to them, and they were singing in beautiful harmonies. One sounded like Beyonce, and we were going, wow, actually, okay, they do sound pretty good. They're all like clapping like happy Hare Krishna people, except they weren't singing Hare Krishna. They were singing.
Yeah, some type of probably political protest because
Mm.
they were saying some other things about like whatever. They were angry about something, but doing it in a joyful way.
So they were balanced.
Balanced protest.
Yes. All right. So so we have the fan, right? The fan is we are receiving life, and we receive life by working with our divine mother and coming out of our internal division. And I've blown up the Isis here so we can see symbols that we're familiar with by now. We have the Ankh, so that's working with the creative energy, working with sacrifice, working to transform all of the situations of life. And then we have the horns of wisdom and the circle, which is the manifested reality. It's also eternity. It's also the snake biting its tail, that we work with the illusion, but the goal is not the illusion. The goal is the wisdom that we take out of the illusion, which is why the diadem on her head has the same circle that goes around her head, but that's where the pineal gland and the crown are, right? So we have the third eye and the crown chakra. That's where her diadem sits. And then she has the serpent of wisdom, which has been raised. And we see this little cartouche that has some interesting symbols on it at the feet of the initiate. There is another papyrus flower, and this one is facing down. So what does that look like? It's like a very pretty Baphomet, because we have one up, one down. The one on the initiate's head is going up. The one at her feet is going down. I personally think this Baphomet looks more artistic, but it's the same symbol. It's that up and down, that working with duality and that choice. Remember, when we are trying to come out of our biplicity, we are straddling two different paths that can go in different directions, but we can't stay forever. It's like, imagine if you had one foot on one boat and one on another, and they're going in different directions. You're not going to be able to stay there for very long. Either you're going to jump to one boat or the other, or you're going to fall off. And this tells us that we can't stay within biplicity. So the ostrich feather is another help for the initiate. This represents discernment and comprehension. It's only through comprehension in the face of difficult emotions that we're going to be able to come through these events and actually align with the way that we want to go. And we see this clue here with the moon. That's the subconscious, right? We're working with the subconscious. We're working with those hidden elements that we have not yet become aware of. So in this little cartouche, we have, of course, the staff, which is the energy goes up the spine and comes down to the heart, meaning we'll only comprehend if, yes, we work with the divine mother, but also the love that we talked about, the heart. That third force, the conciliatory force that is not stuck in duality in the two poles, so that we can truly see. And the other that little circle, when they draw the little circle, you can't see it here, but often they have some lines going across it, and it's the placenta. So we've seen that symbol before. The placenta is new birth. We have the opportunity to create something new. So whatever it is in the current moment that is difficult for us is our crucible in order to lead to something new if we wisely transform it. Hence we have the snake, the wisdom we want to extract from it. And this little squiggly symbol is interesting as well. So it reminds us of the path up, right? It reminds us of the Ida and Pingala. And it's making a hard veering to one side, which reminds us of how when we have two choices, we're not going to be able to just stay in the middle forever, right? Don't confuse this with the middle way, because this is not that. This is where we're caught in, I need to choose how I'm going to proceed, and we can't just not decide. Something is going to decide for us. So it's that decisive moment. If we want the Kundalini to raise and we want to progress on the path, we have to have that decisive moment where we say, okay, here, this is where I'm going. And that's where the master says, we are looking at these good and bad events, but we're extracting something from it. When we extract the wisdom, then we're wise, we have discernment, and we make a conscious choice. So we don't become that leaf in the wind that says, oh, I'll just allow everything. We need acceptance in order to comprehend, in order to dissolve the ego. But the essence does have the responsibility to take action. So we can't just say, oh, maybe he's going to do it for me. The people around me are going to do it for me. Circumstances will do it for me. No, then we're not participating in the game. So if we're going to participate, we have to make decisive choices. And funnily, the predictive aspect of this card is waffling, obviously, because it's the biplicity. Also, in the minor mysteries, it's like the fifth major mystery where we're trying to find the being. We're trying to find that inner knowing where we say, yes, it's just going to be this. Like when Gandhi said to all his followers that came after weeks of travel to come do a march, and he said, go home. And they said, oh, why? And he said, go home. That's all. This is my decision. If you're working with me in this protest, I'm telling you all to go home. And he didn't mind that they had walked for a long time to get there. They were offended, and that wasn't his business. He was just, I'm following my internal authority, and this is what we're doing now. So we need to decide, but of course we need to align with the virtues of the soul in order to make the right decision.
And so 38 reduces down to 11, and then eventually 2, which we have in this card. So if we look at this series of cards of the flavor of the High Priestess, the High Priestess represents the Divine Mother, and all of these cards also are connected to the Divine Mother, but specifically the Divine Mother in the sense of the Cosmic Mother rather than the creative energy, which is number 3, right? So in that sense, it's kind of sort of the construct and then how it works. We look at the cards through the series. We have 11 is persuasion. And when we talked about Arcanum 11, we talked about it should really be like persuasion, coercion, but in that sense, it's persuasion, and it's a positive card, number 11, in that sense, right? So it's how when we work with the Divine Mother, we work through persuasion and the divine will, we are a center of light and we attract others through us to the center of light. Then we look at 29 is domesticity. So as a flavor of 11, it's kind of the inverse of that. Well, if we listen to coercion, if we pick coercion over persuasion, instead of linking with the lion and the divine will, we end up connected with becoming domesticated and asleep and a robot. And now we go to 38 and we have biplicity. And the flavor of this is kind of, as Ruth said, waffling in between. Are we going to follow the persuasion of our inner being, of the Divine Mother, or are we going to follow the coerciveness of the systems and fall back asleep? Aside of that, I think the symbols on the card point to that as well. We have the moon as a planetary ruler, which goes along with the lunar forces and the Divine Mother. The letter at the bottom is J, which kind of actually looks like the flower in that hook down. But as Ruth said, it's the flower and the feather are kind of like Baphomet. In this case, we could say that with the letter in the Hebrew letter. I believe that's Zayin. If it's not Zayin, it's something similar. but Zayn usually is as the feminine ascended, but it's kind of like both in that sense, right? The letters are almost the parallel opposite of each other and pointing to that, in an ascended point and a descended point. So, yeah.
Also, J is the 10th letter, so it's like facing karma as well.
Yeah, but this is 11.
I know, just J.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
All right. So here we have as a quote from Practical Guide to Gnostic Psychology and Meditation from Saint-Alain Beor. Sometimes I go to different translations, so I'm not sure if this is in Glorian or what the Glorian book is. Different like Spanish translations. So that's what it was called if we directly translated it from Spanish. And this quote is about how we choose. So he says, we must experience the truth in a direct, practical, and real way. This is only possible in the stillness and silence of the mind. And this is achieved by means of meditation. So there we have the answer. If we're saying, how am I going to face this internal division? How am I going to come out of this darkness, this despair, this grasping, this discouragement, this confusion? By meditation. And any kind of intellectualizing in the mind or intellectual study, it can help. But as we found in the practice, if we weren't too distracted by the radiator, then we have the capacity to go deep into these issues and to untangle them actually by doing nothing, which is a superpower. And anything that thinks it wants to be the doer who's going to fix it is just a little fool that's getting in the way. So we have to let all of those concepts and wanting to fix it, let all of those aggregates aside and just be with those cosmic knots until they untangle. Jenna says, do the tarot cards reflect our path as an initiate? Yes. Sorry, Jasmine. Yes, it's the path.
well, the first nine cards reflect the spheres on the tree of life, and 9 being the 9th sphere in the Sod is the Hermit, which is the beginning of the path. So then from 9 through 22, it's a reflection of the trials that we would face on the path through, I guess, like the 3 mountains. 23 and 24, then also with kind of like a closing on that in the pointing to the truth about reality. And then the rest of the minor arcanums tend to be more flavors of the cards they reduce to. So in this case, for example, like we showed, like 29 and 38 are related to 11, or 37 and 28 would be related to 10, right? And they're not the answers or the solutions usually, right, to our readings. So in that sense, it's kind of contextually to show what other influences are on our reading and in what type of flavor to try to help us understand what the reading is in the minor arcana. So it's a type of usually the cards that it reduces down to.
All right. So we have 39 testimony. And Master Lakshmi says, the testimony also teaches us that on the path of life, we are a wandering pilgrim who represents that traveler who seeks only his own perfection, who does not demand anything from anyone because he's confident that the grace of God is on his path, stretching out his hand, and that he cannot waste it. This arcanum corresponds to that detachment that we must make of all that impedes our journey. It is the principle of demonstration as an element of conviction. Witness your intentions before yourself, but before others, witness your works. This is a really good quote. I like it. The problem is that because it's a translation, sometimes it can be tricky to understand it well in English, and we can just see it as a wordiness, and it must be because of the Spanish language, how it's described.
I don't even know thyself.
Mm,
so that you
mm.
could detach.
Yeah, yeah. That's what he's saying in a lot of words. But we can see here he says we need to detach, and he says that we demonstrate our conviction, meaning that the proof is in the pudding, or by their fruits you will know them. That how we behave comes from what is inside. How we take action in those critical moments shows the state of our work. And again, as we've talked about, sometimes the ego picks on us a lot and gives us some tricky conundrums, right? Especially if we say, what do you mean? That means if how I behave is an example of my work, well, I've been terrible because I've been not good enough, and that's just my ego telling me that I'm not good enough. So don't fall into that one. But really, he's saying that we need to detach. We need to come out of all of those things in life that try to catch us. And anywhere that we're caught, we'll see that we're stuck by nature of the reaction or the response to the situation. And that's good. That means we found a place where we're stuck and we can unstick ourselves using the methods that we know about. And in that way, what we do internally, people will see that externally. It reminds me of my brother is not in Gnosis. He's a Christian. He's a very devout Christian. But he went to a particular workplace, and this has often been the case for him, where he always wanted to be such a good, upright worker that in about 5 minutes, everyone hated him because they wanted to be lazy, and he made all of them look bad because he was actually trying to do his job. And whatever job he was doing, all of the lazy people would start scheming against him and try and get him fired because he was blowing up their spot, right? So, and he tried to stay out of it, but sometimes they would do things like he had this laborer's job where they were just moving tiles and helping with this landscaping company. And when they had their break, I think it was 10 minutes, he would get up and start working again, and they would all look at him like, gosh, how can you end our break like that? You start working, now we all have to. So they started telling stories about him to the boss and saying, oh, I saw him spending a long time in the bathroom. And this was a common thing that he experienced. And at one point, he came to a new school where he was teaching English, and the other teachers were lazy. They didn't like him. And oh, yes, Jasmine says, I noticed 38 gave an answer to Caitlin's topic of what she shared. Yes, exactly. It's synchronistic, right? So these other employees, they didn't like him. And one in particular started going around spreading rumors about him. And a lot of the people that they went and told these stories to and said, oh, he's this, he's that. At first, they didn't know him. So they said, oh, okay. They didn't fall into gossip and judgment. They said, I don't know, let's get to know him. Let's not put the verdict out before the time. And then as time went on, they started saying to her, we don't believe your stories because we are working with him. And what you're saying is not true. So here, the master says that others will see our works, meaning that no matter what could be said about us, or even what we might think about ourselves if we're having discouragement, the proof is in the pudding. And that means when we diligently do the work, we're not perfect, but our friends of the path know that we're doing the work. They can see it. So let's look at these symbols. At the top of the plate, we have what they called flowers and nuts. And we talked about by their fruits you shall know them, right? So we see here's a garden, basically. There's results. Flowers are a symbol of the virtues of the soul. So blossoming in the higher dimensions, just like in the meditation, we dissolve or we work to dissolve the aggregate, and then we work to crystallize virtues. So this initiate, he's given up a lot. He has a sacrifice, which is the goat, the ego. He's going to go put it on the altar and burn it. And when he gives up the ego, then he has this garden that's blossoming. And he can do that because he has that I at the top, the God part, right? The God particle, the part that is able to see, be aware. And that's why it talks about detachment being disidentified. We have to be able to observe the ego and not get caught up in its stories, its drama. There's a hand at the bottom that is a symbol of help and protection, but we see this below his feet. And that means that even our ego, even our difficult situations, these are not against us. These are a help for us if we can extract the wisdom. And from this wisdom comes that light that burns. So we see on the top right, there is like the candles of the altar, which is the same, is it Shin, the Hebrew letter? So both the sigil and the Hebrew letter, they're the same. It's the candles on the altar. The altar is a symbol of the perfect man. And having that light is that we have the Holy Spirit and we have wisdom. So he has a testimony, right? We can see results. And the prediction of this card is that we're able to make the correct choice, which is, it's like a great follow-up to the biplicity. Like we came out on top, that through our deep and diligent inner work, we're able to give up the ego and we're able to walk the path.
39 is the first card, well, not the first card that reduces down to 3, but the first one that goes via 12, which is the Hanged Man, or the Apostolate, I believe is the Apostolate, right? And in a sense, if we remember, 12 is, we're facing downwards and we need to turn ourselves back up through the energy. With the symbols on this card, we have, Ruth pointed out, the Hebrew letter Shin, which is the fire. And then also the card itself has the element of water. Through fire and water, we create the third force. And we have that connection down to the number 3 and the creative energy. But also, too, you have the hand facing out, which is sacrifice, right? We have the man with the dead animal, so the death of the ego. And we see that we're working through the 3 factors. And also, I think the card is ruled by Jupiter, which represents the being and the working with the divine law, the conscious will. And through these things too, if we notice the colors on the card as well, both in the physical place at the bottom and at the top in the spiritual one, we have pink. And in the Egyptian tarot, the pink is, represents the creative energy or divine love. I think they said divine love, it's exoteric, but that third force. But in the middle plate where the man is walking, which is at the middle triangle, we see orange, which relates to creating something, creating something, creativity, exoterically. So we have all these things, and it comes around to, if we look at it, how do we turn the hanged man around? And we use the word testimony. Testimony can also be, I think, translated loosely sometimes in some of the Spanish translations to giving faith. And in that sense, we think of conscious faith as direct experience, and direct experience earned through working the 3 factors. And in that sense, it's kind of a clue onto how to flip ourselves right side up, and from being the hanged man and to rising back up, and that's to do the work through the consciously through the energy. The 3 factors.
Yes, I'm reminded of, it's a very common point in the path. We go through multiple points where, in a sense, it's like we're blindfolded, as in we go into dark patches and we fumble. We're going, where's the being? I thought you were there. Now it feels like you're not. And especially whoever started out, like Matthias said, there's a bunch of astral experiences and then they all go away. And then the ego comes in and says, I want more. Where's my experiences? And at that point, we don't deserve them. We've got some long period of just psychological work where we're going to be chipping away at our ego. And it's not the time to be expending dharma to go traveling in the astral and meeting wonderful high, as Samael Amphior says, ineffable beings. Like, that's so nice. That's such a reward. It's just not the time for that. And the more we protest that part of the path, the more we get ourselves all tied up in a ball. And we're all in knots and just like, okay, I'm not attached, but it's been 12 months. I should have more experiences. Someone might go to their instructor and say, how come I only had 5 astral experiences this year? And the instructor says, well, that's pretty good. You should be happy. Someone else had none this year, right? Don't complain now. And then next year you have none. And you go, oh, okay, now it's my turn, right? At least they shouldn't be saying, oh, you shouldn't have astral experiences. What's wrong with you? They should be encouraging you. But these things come and go. So the testimony, yes, we will have internal guidance. We will also have periods of darkness. And during those periods, they're just as important. And we can't allow this card to make us say, great, I have no testimony, because that's the ego. So don't allow the ego to bring you down over this card, because we go through these periods and you might grapple with that for 1 year, 2 years, 1 month. I don't know. It's different for everyone. But then when you surrender, maybe you couldn't remember your dreams consistently. And all of a sudden, when you surrender and you let it go and you truly surrender, then something comes back. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but you will get what you need. So it's really not something to worry about. And also we can say, oh, I didn't have experiences in the astral. Maybe it wasn't as HD, or we weren't as awake as we would have liked. But if you had a dream, you were in the astral, and you can still receive messages like that. And if you didn't remember, sometimes the being will give you something very, very clear, but unfortunately, when you tried to copy it over into the human brain, it didn't come across. That's okay. It will come back. Not in the same dream, another dream. So we don't need to worry about the testimony. We just do the work and the testimony will follow. And here's some more commentary about it. So the master says, of course, we have the axiom, which is make your intentions a witness before yourself, but make your works a witness before others. And the master gives us some guidance on this. Anya says, in these moments, it is helpful to be happy for others having experiences. Yes, we can observe if we have, usually it's envy, right? We say, how come they're having an experience? And so we're supposed to observe that. That could be one of the reasons why the being said, oh, I know, I'll show them their envy. I'll just take away their experiences and let someone tell them a story about theirs. And we're going to do 3 years of working on envy. So just keep working on it. The upright person doesn't need laws. The law is written in his heart. So the testimony is the results that the individual receives from their work. And it doesn't come from control or laws or doing things externally. It comes from the internal, which is why we see this girl here meditating. The light, the love comes out of inside of her. It doesn't go from outside to in. It goes from inside to out. We can't get that confused. And then our actions will follow, right? We don't do the action to change the internal part. We change the internal part and the actions arise naturally. So he says, any action that is not in harmony with the being produces inner disorder and suffering. That's the waffling we talked about, right? It doesn't feel good when we're going against the being, but the ego wants to keep doing it. And we feel this, Just have to keep being with that till we come into the alignment, and then it's great. And if we fall out of alignment, we have that inner disorder, that suffering, which is good because we need to know, right? Imagine if you couldn't feel pain and you put your hand on a hot stove, you wouldn't know. So it has to feel uncomfortable so we know that we are out of alignment. And finally, he says, he who wishes to dissolve the ego must begin by not being a liar. All people lie to themselves. Everyone deceives himself. This is where we learn to be true. That internal alignment is to be true. And of course, we're not perfect. We just keep coming back closer and closer to where we're true. Even if it offends people, even if it causes big changes in our lives. Hey, at least we were true. That's more important. And imagine getting all these external things that the ego wants, but we've sold our souls. We've not been true, authentic, aligned with our inner divinity. That would be far sadder. Okay, so next we come to number 40, which is presentiment. And presentiment means an intuitive sense about the future. So we have the quote here. This arcanum also defines the care we must take when walking, speaking, and above all, acting. Each of us is endowed with senses that we rarely know how to handle. Only with prudence, balance, and discipline can we manage the circumstances of life. It is necessary to learn to listen to the inner voice, that voice which invites us to awaken so that we can see clearly how we should act. So can we see it's a whole journey going through these cards? They're all related, right? First, we're waffling. We're figuring out how to make the right decision. Now, we're getting closer to being aligned with our being. And the voice is a teeny whisper. It's this feeling like, go this way. It's something in the heart. And what can help us to get there? We see these two serpents, right? So we need balance. We need to raise the kundalini. We need that energy that's going to allow the consciousness to awaken. And the flame at the top reminds us of the apostles that received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, right? When you're awakened, you have light. That's why you have all those pictures of the saints that have the glowing lights around their head. You have the divine flame. That means the light has arisen. And it's only with light that we can clearly see. We can see outside of the paradigms of the ego, of attachment. So we have this couple here. They're working in alchemy. That's why there's the Ankh. And the woman is very intuitive, very receptive. So you see both of them are going like this. They're looking to the future. I feel a message. I feel a sense. I feel like this is what I should do. They're putting their hands up and they're getting a sense of what is the way to go. It said that in this drawing, I'm just going to check the next drawing here. So do you guys see this picture here? It was changed to an Ankh in Glorian, but the thing in the guy's hand here, it looks like an Omega symbol. And it was said to be a signet ring. Either way, the signet ring was like a seal of the pharaohs, and it was said that it protected the name of the pharaohs. Either way, they have power, right? They have some kind of special magical power. And when the artwork was more obscured, ooh, it's a magical ring, you don't know what it is. But here they made it clear, oh, it's working with alchemy, with sacrifice, with transformation. So you know what is the power that's going to awaken your discernment to hear your inner voice. And in the bottom of the plate, we have another cartouche that's called the Mouth of God. And there's two shapes here. There's a full circle and there's a smaller shape. And they're said to be that this smaller shape, it looks like a mouth, like lips, that's the word of God. And the circle is divine love, which is very profound because the circle, again, also represents illusion, represents 10, the wheel, Maya, and a way to extract wisdom, which is why we see the circle at top. But this circle here, why does it mean divine love? It means that because all of this Maya and this supposed pain is how we extract through divine love. And to experience, to have any kind of manifestation at all, is also love. And it's comprehension that shows us this is love. So yes, it's a placenta, it's a giving birth to something on a higher octave, but we need to see how it is love. The mind can't do that. The ego can't do that. But the essence can do that. We need to see how in every event of our life, there is love. So we have the guidance of this initiate comes from the word of God, also the word within, and from seeing through the eyes of love. And curiously, we have a heart shape made by the tails of the cobras in the top of the plate. So that's a clue. The heart knows. And beneath the heart, there's a trinity. That's so good. And the prediction for this card is that through connection, through clarity, we're going to make the right choice. And then Anya says, it's interesting how the eye is the circle inside this mouth. Yeah, so the cartouche is that shape. Like if we go here, we see Isis. She's inside a cartouche as well. And the blown up part with the snake here and the cane and the placenta, that's also a cartouche. So that part surrounding it is like, here's a little picture with a symbol. And then I don't know if you guys can see me actually. Can you see me? Because I've got this thing on my screen. So I don't know if I'm trying to make a symbol. If you can see the camera, like this, the thin symbol that looks like an eye, that's a mouth. But remember, all this is intuitive. So we can also see an eye. If you see an eye, that's
like
what
L for love.
Yes.
Intuition. I don't know, maybe. I think with this card is 40. So we talk about sometimes in Kabbalistically, when you have a zero after something, it's something internally at least, it's something that's like an exclamation point, right? And 4 is the emperor. It's the Atman has said, the being. The planetary ruler on this card is Uranus, which is the all father, right? The being's father. So that makes sense in that sense. But really, the prediction on this card is very similar, right? If you guys remember back to the major arcanum 4, we said that when you have the card as a 4 itself as you're reading, it usually means that whatever is needed to happen has already happened. So in this sense, this card has a flavor is that predictions coming true, connection to the being, all of these things. Obviously, this wouldn't be the root of the synthesis, so it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever has already been done, but that it's already in motion, that it's a similar type of energy to the emperor in that. And then the symbology shows us how we can connect to the being, to the emperor within, with the alchemy all the way up to the spiritual plane, the energy balance, the couple, the holding the Ankh, which is a symbol of Venus, and the causal realm, which is also all about balance, and all of these things, right? So this is how we present ourselves to link ourselves and align ourselves with the higher self.
Okay, so these are quotes from Rev of Bell. And the master says, the intuitive person knows how to listen only to the voice of the silence. Thus, within his serene mind, the eternal truths of life are reflected with splendid beauty. The mind of the intuitive one serenely and silently flows very far away from the black struggle of antithesis, from the storm of exclusivity. So this or that, it has to be one way or another. One time, when caught within a particular paradigm, I remember really wanting things to be a certain way and saying, unless it's like this, I can't understand it. And the part that was not seen was that this is a loop, a program that says if A, then B. And neither of them were a real thing, but they exist together to self-perpetuate. We find when we're caught in the intellect and within rigidity, we block our internal knowing, we block our inner understanding, and we trap ourselves because the ego can't understand. And it's also angry that it can't understand. So it gets us caught in the mind and in these loops. But I have to understand, and we go round and round. But the true wisdom is very quiet, and it's something we hear inside.
Yes, our good old friend overthinking. Always there. Anya said this, by the way.
Yeah. The symbol of the eye. That's what I was saying. Like it can be a mouth or it can be an eye. It's both.
I got to use an eye emoji, so winning.
That's a really fun eye emoji. We need to use it more. Okay, so 41. It says here unrest, but the English is uneasiness. And the master says, this arcanum shows us the presence in us of the detrimental, embarrassing elements that we carry within us. Unrest or uneasiness. It's a situation that arises when the conciliatory element between God and the person is not present in life. So we're not using the third force. We're not using the conciliatory force. We want to refer to the consciousness. Unrest is the depressing action of the lack of consciousness, understanding, and will. So remember, for whoever was in the previous meeting, we were talking about willpower. Or was it this meeting? Don't remember. But willpower. Willpower is something that could be egoic or divine. And the master says here, the key to coming out of this unrest or this uneasiness is we need to be with the consciousness. We need to have the awareness. Understanding is the third force of the Holy Spirit, and we need divine will. So what is going on here in the plate? The good news, first, up above, is the falcon, and that's not only the Holy Spirit, but it's victory, it's clarity, it's light. So it means that we can come out of the uneasiness. And I know this image here looks like something else, but it's a lasso. So the lasso is that it means that we are trying to grasp, we're trying to catch something. We are looking for a solution. We are worried, we're in disarray internally, which is this uneasiness. And what does it feel like inside? If we imagine that arch is like a dome we're looking into, what is it like inside? There's all these people and they're all going in different directions. They're saying, no, this, no, this, no, this. Everyone's looking and pleading differently. They have their arms up like, oh, hey, listen to me. No one's listening to anyone. No one's making eye contact or trying to understand. They're very confused. And one of them is on their knees, which is like a sign of desperation. And apparently the inverted vessel at the bottom is a symbol of loss, like this is not going well, it's not working out. And predictively, this card is said to be obstacles, delays, social troubles. So whatever that looks like in a community, in a group, at home, people can't get along. And this happens often to show us something inside of us, right? So it doesn't matter if someone is being difficult externally. We can't change them, but we can use those situations to understand what's happening on the inside. So yes, we face unrest, we face worries, we face uneasiness, but for the initiate, this is just another day under the sun. This is great. Now I'm going to face myself, and here is some data that I can work with. And all of this can be overcome with the consciousness, understanding, and will.
The element of water, right? And then Mercury and also the Hebrew letter Aleph relate to the mind. So you say all of the things that make us uneasy with how we have both emotions and thoughts in that sense too. If we look at it through an internal psychological means, this card reduces to 5. We talked about with most of the cards that reduce on the 5 that they seem to be more not so symbolically referencing to the original arcanum in the last few, probably more symbolically 5 as a pentagram. But in this one, I think it's probably more looking towards the Hierophant, as the Hierophant is, the Anubis and balancing the scales. So this is, 5 out of balance, the Hierophant out of balance in that sense.
Mm.
Mm.
So this is a quote from Master Samael about how we face uneasiness. What should we do? The humanoid identifies too much with what others think or how they treat him. This, meaning this identification, torments him emotionally and predisposes him to offend or feel hurt by the slightest thing. We notice this if we have a reaction, like someone says something and we're so fast. We say, no, I'm not. No. And we do this. We're defensive of the self. It's normal. But then we can look back and go, oh, I reacted. I was identified with the someone who was feeling hurt. And if I go into the awareness, no one is offended. It's great. Let me understand how that happened. And then come and say some terrible remark again. I'm ready. And we keep going through this process. And as we dissolve all of these reactions, then we come out of it. Yeah, Jenin said, what is the vase? So the vase facing down, if you imagine like you make something.
Spilling.
Oh, was it vase or?
It's a vase. I'm saying it's the energy
Yeah,
is
it's
facing the wrong way.
spilling. The energy is going down. Now, this sigil, yes. I went down a rabbit hole with it and I was like, oh my gosh, no, let's not. But you brought it up. So look, there was tons of really fun stuff. Okay, first of all, the top looks like the Sheen character. We see here, let's get a bigger one. Here, at the top of the card, on the left and right, both in sigil form and in Hebrew letter form. So this is the light of God, right? And if we look at this symbol, the light goes up, the light goes down, and there's a balance in the middle. There's the equilibrium between it. And that's where we understand that all paths lead somewhere. You can pick your path and go to the place that you're going. You just have to know where you're going and you have to be intending to go there.
It's 3 forces up and down. It's Daemonus Deus inversus. God is the devil inverted, or devil. I'm sorry, the devil is God inverted. And if you go one way or the other, it's still divinity. The line in the middle, being the horizontal line on the cross, is the Maya. So spirit is both above, and then it also descends into matter.
Yeah, I
As
had
above, so below. Yes.
I had a whole fun slide prepared, and then I deleted it because I thought it was too much. But it was all these Chinese characters, like every Chinese character that it looked like, because there's tons in there. When I saw it, my brain was going, oh, look at that. There's one character that means go out, like find the way out, that looks like that. The character God looks like that. The character origin looks like that. So there was tons of similarities. Even field, the character for field, like we're the farmer, we're extracting wisdom from reality. And I don't think these things are an accident. Then I started going down another path because the way that they make these sigils, it's very complicated and it's very hidden, but they have like these wheels with all these layers of different symbols. And what they do is they draw lines across the wheels and then it becomes a sigil, but you don't see the wheel that they made it from. So you don't know what energies they've locked into that pattern. And that sigil, see if you can find it. I found a lot of sigils that look very, very close to it. I think it was like the sigil of the sun. But I didn't want to steer everyone down into like occult rabbit holes because we're talking Rosicrucianism and we're getting into other territories that have less to do with the psychological work and are more just like very curious. So that doesn't matter. The most important thing is that, yes, all of the cards do have sigils, and you probably could, if you looked long and hard enough, you could find the meanings of them, but you need to find the original wheel that they made them from. And I don't see the practicality in that. Who made it? Yeah, I am not sure, but I did find out a lot about how they make sigils, right? Really, we want to learn to channel our energy in a pure way without calling on somebody else to do it. But the Rosicrucians apparently use a wheel. There's a rosy cross in the middle, and then there's all these different symbols and different wheels, and you draw lines in a certain way. You put a little circle on the energies that you're connecting. And so a lot of the sigils to the sun look similar to this, but they're not complete. And it makes sense because they don't have the complete picture, right? They don't have the full, a lot of the people in a cult, they have a small piece of the puzzle, but it's trapped in ego and subjectivity. They're just trying to get something and use the sigil to get something. So they don't have the full symbol. Yeah, so all of the cards have a sigil that activates it, that gives it the power so that we can commune with the higher forces. And we've given an esoteric, intuitive rundown on this sigil. If you go looking, you'll just find more of what I've described. But yeah, seeing the similarities, I can share the characters later, the Chinese characters. Those similarities were interesting. And yeah, I can find the sigils of the sun so you can see what I'm talking about. They're basically incomplete versions of that facing different directions. But that's how they make those symbols. And once someone has made it, we don't know what wheel they used. We know there's some official wheels, but theoretically you could make any wheel. So it's not that important, which is why we see none of the masters talk about it, but it is a curiosity. I agree.
The double L kind of also like shows the
Yeah.
balance, like out of balance, like pushed to two ends, like two polarities.
Yeah, well, we see we have to find balance, right? To find perfect balance. Okay.
Yeah, love and lust.
Yeah. Yeah. L. Very good. So here we have preeminence. This is the last card. And the master says, in this arcanum, we humans are fulfilling the law of serving or being served. It depends on us. So this is like what we said, let the kings be kings and the slaves be slaves. It shows us that the values of the spirit take hold of man, of his heart and his consciousness to lead him on a straight path, being useful to all that surrounds him. In this picture, we have someone who has the solar bodies, right? He's in a chariot. He has the four lower bodies that are below, right? And he rides in the chariot. He has a serpent of wisdom. And then we see the winged solar disk at the top, which is that he's become immortal. And at the very top, there's the crane, which symbolizes ascension. So he's become a kind of king. And while it's his physical bodies, this card also represents that those below become a kind of servant. We've talked about how working with the logos, there are some powerful practices to work with them. And either we can beg them and fall into a subservient pact with them, which we're going to have to pay them back later, because we've, by our own volition, come into that pact. Or we can command them as a being of the unity that is above them in the construct. And it depends on us whether we're going to be a ruler or a slave. Then in the bottom of the plate, we have the staff of power. Of course, all of this power, this ascension, it comes from this energy, right? So the goal is we need to become the ascended man. Here's another artwork. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we know what 6 is the lovers. We have to work with alchemy in order to come into this stage. And we can see clearly here there's the 2 ascended serpents as well. Okay, so the last quote is, only by dying, a truly conscious being is born within us. Our being can exercise true conscious authority. The exercise of true authority can only be exercised by those who possess conscious being. Those who do not yet possess conscious being and have got no conscious tend to abuse authority and cause great harm. So you have those who can rise into a position of control and they can abuse that power and control, that influence. And this is the responsibility of working with the energy, right? We have the staff. It does increase our influence, our influential power. And that's why the masters often says, if you work with alchemy, you work with pranayama. Sometimes in some of the books, he says, oh, this person will have good fortune and many people will come to him and he can do good business. He's just giving you the signs of what happens naturally, that the influence of a person increases, but with great power comes great responsibility. So either we can become someone who uses this wisely, or we can abuse this position and this influence and use it to exert control, exert harm. So the prediction is there's power and there's responsibility, and we need to act from divine love in order to make wise choices.
Yeah. Like you said, this card reduces to 6, which again is chastity. Of course, the ruler is Venus. I'm pretty sure every single card that deals with chastity has a ruler as Venus that we've seen so far. There's the letter M, which reminds me of Mem as a Hebrew letter. So that, which is the water. Again, you have that sigil that looks like Shin in the top corner. So there's again the water and the fire, the staff showing the leading up. You have the man riding in the Merkaba. And then the other Hebrew letter that's in the top, well, actually, Glorian pushes it to the right to make it more uniform with the other cards, and then puts the number, the reduced number in there. But in the original card, usually the Hebrew letter is where the number is. Yeah. So you have Bet there. And what's interesting to me, just glancing at this real quick, is I find a lot of the minors, because they're not necessarily like answers, there's a lot of symbolism showing towards like hidden symbolism showing towards completion of like what is on the card, right? It's both showing has a flavor to it, and it's showing little clues and tricks here. And we have the man in the causal body being carried by the lower bodies of sin, the higher self. And then in the top of the plate, in the spiritual plane, you have the Hebrew letter Bet and the fire. And if we work with the fire all the way up, and we actually create the Merkaba or Da'ath, or the Adam Kadmon, it's the vehicle for the spirit, for the solar system itself. So in a sense, there's an as above, so below, between both the causal body and then the Merkaba above it, because we talked about Bet as relation to Arcanum 2, and how it's basically the house, right? Or like Bethlehem is the house of bread, the house of wisdom, the Merkaba being the house that wisdom comes down into. So to an extent, it is the body for the bigger being that we're all in his reality, that he's also broken up. That's why there's other solar systems, not even the unity, but the unity of the solar system, and that vehicle being Da'ath. And that's symbolized by Bet on the second arcanum. So it's interesting with that. And then to choose that letter, because that letter's not really related to Arcanum 6. So it's a clue there through the fire and the Holy Spirit up there. But they chose to put the letter for the vehicle above image of the vehicle. Everything else in the top of the plate is related to how you get there, the fire and the Holy Spirit and the creative energy. But I thought that was an interesting little thing there. Of course, this is intuitive. I mean, I don't know, it's not really in the source material, but.
All right. So that brings us to the end of today's lecture. And the summary is that we all need to listen to our being, and then we'll be happy. So blessings.
Joyful and blissful.
Yes. Blessings for your week ahead. May all beings be happy. We'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Good day.
You're welcome. You too. Bye.
You.